People tend to spend tons and tons of time and money planning for their baby's nursery, trying to make it perfect. But people tend to spend zero time and zero money planning for their postpartum. It sneaks up on you and boom, you realize you probably should have thought it through just a little bit better. Today, I want to help you do that so that your transition into motherhood is a bit smoother. It's still hard, there's still a lot of learning, but this will make it a little bit easier. And I'm going to help you out with what you actually need to have on your baby registry rather than like 3,000 onesies. Let's go.
Are you a Christian woman yearning for a beautiful, joyful pregnancy and birth with a focus on God, not medical tests? Are you worried the birth you want isn't possible and you're tired of being treated like an accident waiting to happen? Hey mama, I'm Lori, host of Your Birth God's Way. I'm a certified nurse midwife now, but I wasn't always. After working for nearly 20 years in the broken maternity system, I too was in your shoes wondering how I could have the birth I wanted and that I felt God meant for me to have. I found a secret that has actually been known since the beginning of time. God's way is the best way. Spoiler alert, God made us and our babies, and He knows us best. He designed us perfectly for pregnancy, birth, and nourishing our babies after birth, if we work with His design and not against it. In this podcast, you'll learn how to be healthy and have joy during this time of life that will be over before you know it. So if you're ready to reclaim your birth and your babies for His glory, go turn on a few episodes of Bluey for that little one on your hip so you can put the focus back on you for a few minutes with me.
It is review time. This week's review comes from Kristen. She left it back in December. It says, so much wisdom. My first birth was a planned C-section. For my second birth, I wanted a natural VBAC, but was scared and pressured the minute I walked into the hospital and my VBAC did not go as planned at all. This time around, I'm feeling more confident as I prepare with Lori's knowledge and wisdom. I'm putting trust in my body and the Lord's good design, and I'm excited for this third birth. Thankful that she shares so much knowledge and truth. Kristen, thank you so much for that encouragement. Last week we talked about fear-mongering and whether I'm a fear-monger, but I believe that you are telling us right there that, you walk into a hospital, you got your plan, there's a good chance that they're going to derail it, whether they mean to or not. They do what they think is best. It's just that what they think is best isn't always best. And so I'm really hoping that this birth goes like you want it to. For those of you who have not left me a review yet, if you could take just 30 seconds to head over to Apple Podcasts, leave me a quick 5-star written review, I sure would appreciate it. It helps me find other mamas just like you who need the information that I share here so that they can make good, informed, empowered decisions. Now, a quick little side note, you might notice I got different background. That's not a background picture, that's real. I have moved into my new office this week, so I am in a new recording location. Unfortunately, we'll see how it goes because there's a whole lot of road noise, but I believe that my microphone's doing a pretty good job of blocking it out. So let me know if you hear it and it's driving you nuts. I don't think you will, though. I'll try to make sure it's not there before I post it. Okay, with that being said, let's get into our topic today. See, our culture, it gets us all excited about baby registries, right? It's like the first thing everybody asks for. And why is that, by the way? Why is it that all these companies get us so excited about baby registries? Well, you probably know it's money. That's why. See, companies make a ton of money selling you stuff that you really don't need. They have huge marketing budgets that convince you that their thing is going to make motherhood so easy. And yeah, some of the things do. But today, I want to talk to you about something else that will actually make your motherhood easier as you transition into being a mother. And that's actually taking some time to plan your postpartum period the same way that you plan your labor and birth. Now, with that being said, people are still going to want to know about your baby registry. They're going to want to bless you and buy you things to help you along the way. And that's great. And for that, I am going to be putting together a blog that will link to some of these items that I think that will actually help you during postpartum. Some of them are baby items, but most of them are mama items. The blog may not be done though the day that I post this. So if you go to it and it's not there yet, just make yourself a reminder to go back. This week, like I said, I've moved into my office. It's been a very busy week. I've had a long to-do list. And so it's possible that I won't get it completely done by the time I post the new podcast. But go ahead and write down the link. It's go.yourbirthgodsway.com/blog/postpartum registry, all one word, no spaces or anything like that. Mark that and go back to it. If it's not there, when you listen to this podcast, if it's not there yet, it will be soon. So just keep checking back, okay? Now, let's get into the things that you need to think about and the things that you need to plan when you're thinking about what you're going to do postpartum and how you're going to make that time as easy as possible. The first thing is meals. Most families, let's just be real, the division of labor, the way that we decide we're going to do things is that mamas are the ones who make the meals, right? Well, mamas are also the ones having the babies. And so meals after giving birth tend to kind of just get thrown around, forgotten about, just whatever we can come up with. Sorry if that rattled. I bounced something. So I want to talk to you about a service that I recently found out about that I think is amazing. I haven't personally used it because I didn't find out about it till recently and I haven't had a need for it, but I've heard from many people who have, and I think you're going to love it. This service sends organic, yes, actually organic, frozen meals nationwide in the US. If you're listening in other countries, I don't think that they serve there, but if you're listening in the US, this service is so cool. There is going to be a link in the blog post, but I'll give you the link again here in a second. The owners are Holly and Eric Stein, and they were sick all the time as kids. They found that doctor's visits were the norm, and they always seemed to just have to take another pill because they were always had, ear infections or whatever other sickness that was the sickness of the week. They found each other and started dating in their mid-20s, and they fell in love, listen to this, watching food documentaries and studying nutrition. And eventually, they found that they were healing their chronic condition just by cleaning up their diet. They eventually became food activists, and they decided to put this all into a business to serve moms, and they started a business called Mama Meals. It's a nationwide postpartum meal delivery service. It is rooted in principles from traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, and Weston A. Price, which I know many of you, at the very least, are familiar with Weston A. Price. They source the cleanest, most nutrient-dense ingredients that they can find, and they cook many of the meals in healing bone broth, and they deliver them straight to your door. Okay, so that's the cool part, is you don't have to do the cooking. It just shows up. You can skip doing all the shopping and the cooking and the cleaning, and you just get to heat and serve what you want after the baby comes. Now, some people will say that this is pricey, and that may be true, but I will say that you get what you pay for, and these folks are giving you a service that you really can't find anywhere else because it's just about impossible to find prepared meals that are truly organic. So maybe ask your church group if they're wanting to do a baby shower for you, or if a work group or wherever else, your girlfriends, ask them to pool their money together and to use that money to order a few of these kits and have them sent to you so you'll have them in your freezer when the baby comes. They could do like a money tree for your baby shower and then take all that money and pool it together. Or maybe they do a money tree for you and give you the money and you buy this for yourself. When you go to my link and use the code YBGW, Your Birth God's Way, YBGW, you're going to get $20 off your first order. And that link is mama-meals.com. I just think that this is such a great idea. There are so many gaps in the market out there, and people like these two are seeing those needs and they're serving them. And so they're a small business, kind of like me, kind of like a lot of other entrepreneurs. And when we recognize services that do such a great job, we need to patronize them. Okay. So go check them out. I think you're really going to like it. I wish there was a service like this around when I had babies, but that's okay. They saw a need and they filled it. So that's one way to get some really, really good quality food in your freezer to nourish you, to nourish your body and the healing that you need to do after you give birth, and to help your body be able to make the milk that it needs to make for your body when you're postpartum. All right. Another thing that you can do if you're not able to do the Mama Meals option There are several different websites, too, I'm listing here for meal train services. And again, if you have a church group or girlfriends or whatever who want to bless you and want to bring you food that they make themselves, then these are good options, because what you can do is you set up an account and you get to put in there kind of what your dietary preferences are and what days that you would like to have meals delivered, what times of day, and that kind of thing. And then people who love you will go onto these websites on your account and they will sign up for different slots and will show up with food at whatever time. One is called mealtrain.com. The other one is takethemameal.com. And of course, you can always do it old school with paper and pencil at church or whatever if you want to do it that way. But this is really handy for people who maybe are coming from different places, don't always go to the same place to sign up on a sheet of paper or whatever, okay? One word of wisdom though, if you decide to go this route, only ask for something maybe like every other day. And here's why. Your refrigerator will get so full of leftovers and you don't want to waste the food that these people are making for you. So if you do like an every other day dinner, usually you're going to have enough for at least 2 days and you won't end up overloaded with too much food. Just a little word of advice. I might or might not be speaking from experience, right? Okay, next one you can do is just make freezer meals yourself. Now, obviously you're going to need to do this leading up to birth. And you can do it over time. But remember that pregnancy actually goes faster than it seems sometimes. And you'll blink and all of a sudden it'll be time for the baby to come. And you're going to be ready to rest and sit down and rest your body and get ready. And remember that, oops, I haven't done the meals yet. Okay. So if you get to that point, refer back to the previous 2 points that I talked about where you can either order some meals or have other people bring them to you. But if you're really good at planning and you really do plan ahead and you really do actually fulfill what your plans are, then making freezer meals are a great option. It's a way to make food that you like and that you know that your children like if you already have kids. And it's just one way to have less to do once the baby comes. And another option for meals, just easy, basic crock pot meals. There are lots of websites with these. There's books you can get. But what you want to do is tell your husband or your older kids where they can find all the ingredients and then leave the recipes out for them. They can throw the stuff into the pot and then you'll have a hot, delicious meal at the end of the day. By the way, this is why you teach your kids how to cook young. Not too long ago, I think it might have been a year by now, maybe not quite a year, I came down with something and I was feeling pretty bad. And it was right after my husband had left for work for a few days. And so it was me and the kids. Actually, no, I think it was just me and AJ now that I think about it. But my story's all mixed up. This isn't when I was sick. This is when I sprained my ankle. It's all coming to me now. Forgive me. But I sprained my ankle. I did it a couple hours after my husband had left. And so here I was, unable to stand up and cook. And my son made our meals for several days. He literally kept us alive, and he's 10 years old. He made some really, really tasty stuff, including some sauteed mushrooms that were to die for, that I've been trying to make them like he did, and I still hadn't figured it out. Okay. So it pays to teach your kids to cook. So start doing that now so that maybe by the time the baby comes, your kid will be making you really delicious meals. All right, moving on to the next point. We're off of the meals now. Let's move on to another thing that I would highly encourage you do if you have the ability to, and that is line up some helpers, some mama's helpers. Let me tell you about my story from when I was having my third baby, okay? So I had I had a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. Yeah, that's right. And a sweet girl that I had known from some various events that we go to together emailed me and said, "Hey, would you like for me to come stay with you and just kind of be a mama's helper, like make your meals and do stuff and like help you with the older two when birth happens?" And it was like I heard angels singing. I was like, yeah, that would be awesome. Her name is Candace, and she to this day, I just bumped that thing again. She to this day is just one of my favorite people. She is a sweet, sweetheart. And there are girls like this around, believe it or not. See, Candace was homeschooled. She's in her 20s now, and she recognized the value of helping women who are having babies because she had been around her mom having babies and other people who had had babies. So think about, do you have any friends or relatives or homeschoolers who might have some kids who are maybe, mid to late teens, maybe even early 20s, some college students who might want to come get the experience of helping you and being there with you if you have the space to put them up in your house? it is such a blessing for both of you. Candace got a first-hand seat, front row seat to what natural birth looks like. She was there when my third was born. And she has an experience now that I don't know that you can get anywhere else, especially these days when, things don't really happen the way they used to, where just, all the women came together in the family and all that when babies come. It is a beautiful thing. I value her so, so much. I sing her praises all the time to anybody who will listen when we get onto this topic. These people, if you can find a helper who could come stay with you, they can do things like cleaning, chores, cooking, whatever needs to be done around the house, and then just helping with other kids. This is especially helpful if you already have children, because you get tired. At first pregnancy, by now, you get tired because your body is busy making a human. But you still got these kids who don't care that you're tired and they still need stuff done. And so if you can have somebody to help you with that, it is such a blessing. Next thing I want to talk about is visitors. You're going to have people who want to come meet your baby. But here's the big thing. You get to decide when and how. They don't decide. You and your husband get together and decide how you're going to manage visitors and get on the same page about it, and then stick to it. When you decide that you want them to come, maybe ask them to do something. Maybe ask them to bring something to you that you need from the store. Maybe ask them once they get there, could they hold the baby while you go take a shower? Let them be helpful. It is a blessing. And I think in our culture, sometimes we're worried about bothering people, and sometimes we don't ask for what we need. But remember that God wants us to help each other. He wants us to serve one another. And I remember a sweet lady named Carol. She had cancer and she has since passed away. And anytime someone would call her and offer to help her, she always let them, even if she didn't need it. And the reason was because she was helping them fulfill what God calls us all to do, and that is to serve one another. Okay, so keep that in mind. When someone offers to help, actually take them up on it. Oftentimes people will say, hey, let me know if you need anything. And they're not very specific, and you don't really know what to tell them. And it all just falls by the wayside, and you never actually utilize any of those helpers. Use them. Tell them something you need and ask them if they can help you. It will bless them and it will bless you. Okay. Next, have a lactation help plan. Okay. Now, if you prepare well, and I'm going to give you a book that I've told you many times about in a second, but if you prepare well, you may not need a lactation consultant, but you might. And once the trouble sets in, if it sets in, it's a little frantic. You can feel a little bit overwhelmed. And so what you need to do is have some numbers ready, and maybe even touch base with some of these lactation consultants before you have your baby. That way, if you start to have any troubles, you have someone to contact. Okay? Now, before you come to that and before you have the baby, I cannot recommend the book Nursing Made Simple enough. I've recommended it several times. I recommend it in the course that I offer, and that is something that you really, really should read. Mark it up, flag different pages of things that have different tips or tricks that you want to refer back to, and then have it ready after the baby is here so that you can refer to the things that you learned. I actually read this while I was nursing AJ, which was after I had been a nurse for many years, and I was in midwifery school at the time, and yet I learned more from that book than pretty much anything else that I ever did or read or anything. So it's a very, very good book, and it is valuable. It is just priceless. And so I will link that also in the blog post. So go look for that. It's called Nursing Made Simple. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is your time. Okay. Do not make a bunch of plans for your postpartum period. Okay. Leave your schedule open. Don't say you're going to be here, you're going to be there, you're going to do this, you're going to visit this person, bring the baby to them, or whatever. Okay. You need to rest. You need to enjoy your baby and enjoy your husband, and know that you are going to want to remember these days. They are precious days, even though you're tired and you're worn out and you're busy, learning how to breastfeed and all these things. These days you will look back on and want to remember. And if you are so busy running here and there, you will forget them. So do whatever you can to be able to have you both home for a good while after the baby comes. And how do you do that? Well, by our next point, which is money and having some of it. And I know that's easier said than done, but if you will save some each week, so that you've got a little pile over here to deal with whatever comes up, then the pressure of having to work or your husband having to be at work isn't quite so strong, and you will have the ability to have that time set aside to where you all can spend the time together. Next thing I want you to think about is how you're going to sleep with your baby or without your baby, but I hope with your baby. If you're planning on co-sleeping, then you're going to need to have some things kind of planned out, because co-sleeping can be a very, very safe option when it has been planned and you have the right conditions in place. I actually thought I had done an episode on this, but I went back through and if I did one, I can't find it. Maybe if you know I did it, you can shoot me an email and let me know which one it is. I searched all through my different podcast titles and didn't ever find it. I do talk about it in the course, and maybe that's what I'm remembering. So if you're not in the course, go hop over into that and you're going to learn a lot about this. But co-sleeping is the way that I was never exhausted in the newborn phase. It was such a blessing, and I took several steps to make sure that it was a safe situation. One of the things I had was a co-sleeper. And yeah, I will say that co-sleepers are nice and all. But honestly, like so many other things that are on your baby registry list, it didn't end up really getting used for co-sleeping. It was, though, a really nice changing table. And the way they make those, they actually kind of strap onto your bed so they don't move. And it was kind of like a barrier on the other side of on the side of the bed so that the baby wouldn't fall off. So it was very handy to have a changing table right there, or I could just throw whatever I needed to have close by into the bed. But honestly, I think everybody I've ever talked to about their co-sleeper, their baby didn't actually sleep in it. The baby slept in the bed with them where they could nurse the baby directly against them and then just doze back off to sleep. It's such a blessing to do that. And I really, really hope that you'll look into it and look into how to make it a safe option. They don't make the exact one anymore that I use, but they make one that's pretty close. So I will link that in the blog in case you want to kind of see what it is. And if I can find that picture that I use from time to time showing my co-sleeping setup with all the mess that was in my bedroom at the time, I will also put that in the blog, but I'm not 100% sure what that is. I'll try though. All right. Next thing is feeding arrangements. Now, I trust that you're going to be nursing because that truly is God's way. But what I mean here is, where do you think that you will probably be most comfortable nursing during the day? Not maybe while you're sleeping at night, but during the day. I think one of the best things you can do is to have you a nice little nursing station wherever you think that you're going to be nursing. Now, I said think, because very often where you think you're going to end up is not where you actually end up. And so this is a really good thing to, a good way for you to do this is to have one of those little rolling carts. I'll link one in the blog post, that you can move to wherever you end up nursing. And on this little cart, you're going to want to have things like your water, maybe a book like that Nursing Made Simple book, and whatever else you might need. If you're doing any pumping or using like a haka on the opposite side, if you're leaking to catch it, you want to have all that stuff on that cart. I'll link that as well. You also want to think about having pillows in that space, and ask your husband to put the pillows under your arms once you get the baby latched on and get comfortable, because if your muscles are engaged at all, you're going to end up cramping. So having the support underneath your arms is very, very important. Boppies are very boppies are very useful for this, but you don't have to have a boppy. You can use just regular pillows. The nice thing about the boppies are that they're curved and they fit right up against your body quite well. So I'll link one of those in the blog post as well. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is planning with your husband. Okay. Postpartum is a very, very tough time for marriages because there's so much adjustment, and husbands, no matter how much they love you, no matter how much they try, they don't understand all the changes because they can't, because they're men. It's not because there's something wrong with them. It's just not what God put inside of them. And so even though they might be trying to be good to you and they might be trying to help you, they don't always know how. And if you mix in things like tears and postpartum hormones and all these kind of things, they're likely to just check out. And I do not want this period of time to be a period of division in your marriage. I want it to be a period of unity. So here's some things I want you to talk about with your husband. I want you to talk about the division of labor. Who's going to do what after the baby comes? Who's going to be responsible for what, so that no one is questioning and no one has to be resenting anyone because something's not getting done. I want you to talk about postpartum hormones. Go back to episode 13. And by the way, I've noticed lately that on Apple Podcasts and some of the different podcast apps, you can't go all the way back to the older episodes. So if you can't get all the way back on those apps, Podbean is my host, and that's who I post through. In that app, you should be able to get all the way back to episode 1. So go back to episode 13. That episode talks about postpartum hormones, and that will help him a lot to just understand that there are things going on inside of you that you have no control over as your body is balancing back out into normal. Okay. And so sometimes you might be crying and you don't know why. And that's frustrating to them because they want to fix it, but they can't. If they can understand that and they can know that that's normal, they can kind of relax a little bit and not be trying to fix it. Sometimes you might be happy one minute and sad the next, and that can be normal. They need to understand that. So you guys need to talk about these things so that they're aware of it and it doesn't catch them off guard. I want you to talk about also how you're going to be going through some of these very significant changes on the inside of you, in your mind and in your body, and help him to understand that some patience and just being accommodating will go a long way. Talk about how you're going to communicate, as these changes are happening, if you're not able to fully articulate what you need, how you want him to talk to you, how you want him to act, anything you can do to help him understand a little better will be helpful. Talk about how you need him to protect you from stress and from drama. And what I mean by this is maybe visitors who don't want to honor your policy that you've come up with your husband, saying, we don't want visitors until this time, or maybe dealing with parents and grandparents who disrespect the boundaries. Anything he can do to handle for you will help you. And so help him to understand that taking care of those things for you will be a blessing and will help you to see that he is protecting you. And then also you need to talk about the expectations for sex, because you're not going to be ready and he is almost always. Now, that's not always the case, but he's going to be ready because it's going to be a little bit of a wait until everything's feeling back to where you think you can do it again. Okay. Help him to understand that and help him to know that you guys can have some open conversations about it, but he's going to need to be patient with you because some things have happened down there that he can't quite perceive and you need time and patience. The more of these things you can talk about ahead of time, the less you're going to have things to cause problems after. So what else do you recommend? Those of you who are listening who've already had kids, what do you think a mom needs to have taken care of so that she's got a nice, smooth postpartum time? I want you to comment on the YouTube video or over in our Facebook group. The link is down below in the description. And let's help all these moms who are expecting right now or will be expecting, help them to find the resources that they need to have a nice, smooth transition. This podcast had a whole lot of things in it, but it certainly didn't have everything. So what do you think was important? What helped you the most? And I want you to remember too, my course covers everything that you need to know to make good decisions about your care and your baby's care postpartum. So that also needs to be on your must-have list. That course is going to cover everything, again, that you need through pregnancy, through birth, but the postpartum parts that a lot of times get skipped over, it's all talked about as well. The breastfeeding stuff that oftentimes gets put off to the last minute, it's all in there. And so put that on your list as well. If you've got the money tree thing going on in your baby shower, like I talked about earlier, maybe pull that money as well for the course. Whatever you need to do to be able to have this information so that you're making your decisions from an empowered and informed position. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I look forward to talking to you again next week. Bye.
Real quick, if today's episode blessed you in any way, would you head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a quick 5-star written review? It'll take you less than a minute, but it's the best thank you can give me. And it will help my show to reach more mamas just like you so we can all find God's best for our families. I'll see you right back here in a few days.